Work session today is Monday, 26th. We have before us our Assembly Member Mary Jane Shipsky, our County Legislator Margaret Kunzio, and our Major Domo of many things, Marlene Canopy, here to talk about the Pleasantville Mental Health and Wellness Committee.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
So thank you so much for welcoming us and hosting again. I was here the first time with Michael Ford, who sends his regrets. This is International Overdose
Awareness. Yeah.
Awareness Week. Yes. And so he had to sub in for someone at the last minute, and he meant to be here. We may be joined by someone else.
She said she was coming.
Okay, all right, and that would be Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins, and I'm so, next to me is, as you said, Assembly Member Mary Jane Shipsky and County Legislator Margaret Kunzio, and when Michael Orth and I, actually, Paul, it all started at a Rotary meeting, and he was our guest, and
Nice.
so the idea was born out of, one of these meetings because I had, there were many issues that are, coming out of, his talk. And one of them was that, sometimes when we have patients that go to Phelps, they don't understand, they don't know that there are services available for them from his office. And so from
That is,
there,
the caregivers don't know that?
sorry,
The caregivers at the hospital don't know that?
they don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it was just one of the parents said to me, they were the ones that had to tell them, look, it's at his office.
Mhm.
And, please call them because it's available for us. And so it sort of like snowballed into many more stories. And we decided, you know what? There's not enough people that kind of know what's going on in your office. And I said, I think that, we had this idea of going to the different parts of our community, and I'm already a longtime advocate of the neurodivergent community, and so I held and hosted talkbacks at ArcStages, and so the purpose going into this is taking parts of our community. Mary Jane will address the concerns of the seniors, and Margaret will be, our county legislator, will address concerns for emergency services like the police, fire department, and the EMS. And so that's the main goal of it. And the other half is sort of like listening. While we're there and we're in front of them, we would love to know what else is sort of what their concerns are that we don't know about. So part of it is listening, but that's the main goals, but tonight, Margaret and Assembly Member Mary Jane Shipsky, they're here to kind of like say hello to you and, put a face to our committee and, let them talk about what their missions are. Is that good?
Sure.
Perfect.
Okay, this does not directly concern the demographic I've been assigned, but earlier today I was at a very exciting preschool year event run by the public schools of the Tarrytowns. And a lot of businesses, medical facilities, the farmers market, Tosh was there and handing out literature, talking to families. And I got to the county community mental health table, and there were two wonderful women there who I knew from my time in the county board. And they were standing behind an empty table. I mean, everybody had literature or, candy or various items. Their table is totally empty, I said. And one of the women told me that all of the material that they had brought with them was gone in 25 minutes.
Wow.
We know that we have a big problem throughout our society and within our communities. And everyone talking to each other about their pieces, not just the problems, but the services they provide, the referrals they provide, so everybody knows what everybody else is doing, will make it easier for people, for the mental health sector of our healthcare system to function better. We know that we have a huge shortage of professionals within that sector. So whatever we can do to make things run more efficiently is going to have to tide us over until we work on what we have to work on, some of which is actually legislative fixes to make sure there are more mental health professionals to establish the need. In terms of senior citizens, the pandemic really hit them hard. And I saw it with my own mother. They were very isolated. Many of them did have activities, our local community senior programs. My mother's building in Pennsylvania at that point had a lot of activities for them. There was a lot of socializing going on. And then when COVID hit, everybody stayed in their own little four walls and never left. And we all know with young people that isolation has hurt a lot of them in a lot of ways, but it's also hurt our seniors too. And helping to make sure that they are able to reintegrate with our communities and live happy and productive lives is every bit as important as it is for our young people. And I look forward to working on that.
Thank you for that.
So our goal is to set up, sort of a town hall at the senior center. And, make it a public information that anyone who's interested can go there. And, Michael Orth will send sort of like his support team and, with full information and, Mary Jane here is already overachieving and, investigating all sorts of services that can be provided for them. So thank you for that. You're already going above and beyond. So thank you. And, in terms of, Margaret.
Yes, so I have taken on the role of emergency services, and that role is extremely more complex because it's not just making sure that those who are in emergency services know what programs are available when they're dealing with certain situations. Unique to this area, there are two special act school districts. You have the Cottage School, you have Hawthorne Cedar Knolls. I know personally, as a member of the Thornwood Fire Department, we get called to the Cottage School quite often. And sometimes when we're going there, even as a fire department, Pleasantville EMS is there often. You're dealing with some very complex situations. So it's not only to make sure that the emergency services personnel know what to expect, what is available for them, but there's also another level, and that is that those in emergency services are dealing with very traumatic issues as well. There are times when you'll go to a motor vehicle accident. There are times when you'll go to a house fire. There are times when you're dealing with EDPs. And how does that affect the emergency service personnel themselves? I know at the county level, they've introduced a therapy dog now at the Department of Emergency Services. They've done a lot of different things to help with outreach and support from the state level to the county level. But my role is going to be to really work with all emergency services, whether that's police, we have additional training now that is provided for law enforcement. We also have training that's provided to the fire departments and obviously EMS, but also that they know exactly what programs are offered, what they can take advantage of to assist them. And we talked a little bit about Phelps, but I also want to tie in Westchester Medical Center because a lot of times if law enforcement is involved or EMS, they are taking patients to Westchester Medical Center. So if it's not just Phelps that needs to know what programs are available, we want to make sure that that line of communication is open and that every hospital and clinic knows exactly what is offered. There are some situations that certain fire departments have gone through, certain police departments have gone through and need a lot of support themselves. And that's really a very challenging clientele to tap into, because they're not always as open to accepting that help or saying, I need help. And that's really the first step on that side of it, is being able to say, here are the programs we offered, and it's okay if you need help. The other side is we want to make sure when they are arriving at a scene, and that scene is going to be, you know, traumatic to begin with, what they're dealing with, that they know exactly who to go to, what programs are available. And especially for our emergency services or EMS and ambulance, that they know exactly what they can advocate for those patients. So if they're bringing a patient to Phelps or to Westchester Medical Center, they can know right away and say, here's the situation, here's what we have. We know that the county offers X, Y, and Z, or we know that there's a program for this. Can we try to get the person into this program or to see this person? You know, again, it's a lot of personnel. I know that the state, the governor and the state has issued a lot of money to help with mental health. I know school districts are focusing on it. And I know that emergency services have now realized that this is also as important for everyone here. So I think that it is the number one priority, and people really are starting to take notice and to start to ask for that help. So now comes the hard part. They're asking for the help. How do we fulfill that need?
One of the things that we have been talking about with, at some of our communities to the south of Pleasantville is peer-to-peer counseling, which seems to be effective in a lot of respects that traditional counseling is not, because traditional counselors and the first responders really don't see eye to eye necessarily on what it is that the first responders go through.
Sure.
Welcome,
But
Senator.
what has also happened is that there are situations that can get really difficult with peer-to-peer counseling, because when you're dealing with a therapist, you have a legal privilege. So that way you feel comfortable talking to your therapist about things that might get you in legal trouble otherwise. And there was no privilege for the peer-to-peer counselors. The Assembly passed, I believe the Senate passed as well this year, legislation which would create a privilege for peer-to-peer counselors,
That would be huge.
which if that becomes law would definitely increase the potential for the kind of mental health services that seems to be particularly effective with this community.
So is that on the governor's desk, you think?
Well, certainly it would be.
It seems like a no-brainer.
Right.
And of course, there's always a contrary view on every subject, but.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It does sound like a no-brainer though.
Yeah.
How does this all dovetail with the county crisis teams that got established?
So the county crisis team is in effect, they are completely overwhelmed. They are working very hard. They definitely need more. We also have the crisis center that was opened up in the last 2 years, which is modeled after the Dutchess County one. And it's basically a place that people can go to at any point in time. It's 365 days a year, 24/7, with somebody staffed there to assist. The problem is staffing personnel, we need more of it. So a lot of times they are extremely busy. We also have the legislation that passed with the green light, where emergency services will have the blue lights for volunteer firefighters. There's now the green light for those that are in the crisis center area, so that people know that they need to get someplace quickly to get to a situation and know that they are also responding to an emergency. So it kind of brings that up to par. That is going to be funded, like that's something that we started when we were on the County Board of Legislators, and it's something that needs more funding because they need more staff, but they are in full force. The problem is that they are responsible for the entire county of Westchester.
And just too many calls for service.
Correct. So they're out there and they're working. the problem is we need more. And we really at first started it more as a pilot program, but it has been so successful that they are going to expand it. But that, of course, comes to funding.
Like so many things I've noticed.
Yeah.
Well, that is something that we have, I think, put increased funding
Yes.
in, understanding how critical it is. So we have continued to. I'm just, sorry, I just was talking to Marlene before I sat here because I know there was a report being given and I didn't want to interrupt the report, nor did I, know what I needed to contribute to, but it sounds like you all have it under control. So, and we have resources. I mean, we put, just in terms of the state government, it was $1 billion last year. And Westchester has gotten multiple million, but certainly to go in a lot of different places. I mean, $55 million statewide to add inpatient beds and, things like Daniel's Law, where we try and make sure that when law enforcement answers a call for someone who might be in crisis, that there are other support staff there. We're piloting that, and certainly, money for our school mental health, which is something that nobody really paid attention to before, we had gone through COVID, et cetera. So there's been a lot of resources that are starting to flow with the understanding that we can do more. But it's good to be here and listen to a community that is really trying to take bit by bit. And, I'm hoping that the resources are getting to the right place in the right amounts to really try and address. And, Pleasantville is certainly small enough and big enough to kind of, help us figure out where the voids might be and how we can really direct services to you. So thank you, Mary Jane and Margaret and Marlene,
And
and all of you, the trustees.
we have one missing. It's
Yeah.
Dr. Damien Harris.
Oh, sure.
She's
Sure.
also in this committee,
Yes.
but as you know, she's just taken over and quite busy.
I was gonna say,
And I think that's the nice thing here is you have such a strong link between the state, the county, and the village. And I think that's really important. So every piece is connected and every piece is covered from the village to the county to the state, so that there is that progression. And we know that that communication piece is very big when it comes to funding, when it comes to resources, and with Michael Orth at the county, who really is at the helm of making sure that these programs are provided, are getting created, and that the resources get to where they need to in the county. And of course, Marlene as the advocate to make sure those resources get to Pleasantville. So I think this is a very cohesive committee, and with everyone here, again, I don't think you could find a better team.
that would be easy to agree with.
We have an all-star team here. Thank you for taking the time to come in and, this is such a strong topic that I think everyone in one way can associate it with it in personally, or, somebody's affected by it by just an arm's length. So I think to show that, with how much you have going on, that you're taking the time together to collaborate on this, it's amazing. It's inspiring to make a difference in this. So I thank you for taking leadership in that.
The crisis response team, the county team that legislator Kunzio mentioned is incredibly important to us. It's beyond the cottage school and other things that are, on our periphery. Our school district is one of the school districts that is most friendly to neurodivergent children. And so we have a pretty significant population. And this is something that we hear, often from our police and, from the parents of these children, is having the appropriate response when the parent gets beyond their ability to help, but not wanting to call in a traditional police response. That's really important.
Village of Pleasantville also is ahead of its time, because in your police force, you actually have an officer specifically trained to deal with responding to that. And I think that is a great model for other law enforcement departments in the county to have, is that specialized training, to have somebody designated who knows what to do in that response. And kudos to you as a village for doing that into, your police chief and your police department, because for a small village, you, again, as you said, have embraced that and made sure that you're leading by example.
We did get to try to get that officer to work 168 hours a week, but.
Right.
unfortunately-
Yeah, I know.
And don't worry about his mental health.
Yes,
Other programs.
Of course, which we fund, yeah.
Which we'll have personnel for in about 6 to 8 years.
The police reform process was very helpful in that way. That was one of the things I think that got that going.
Yeah,
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to the communication piece, because that's come up multiple times, the sense that there are all these resources out there, but that those who are on the front lines don't necessarily know about them. Is it too early, or do you have some ideas? Or, what kind of hub would be most effective to make that communication happen?
I think it's just in terms of us going to our community. For example, you spoke about Tarrytown and their community day. And so that was the first time we decided we were going to go out to the community. And I really didn't have a lot of expectations that anyone would really come to our table. But it was the same thing. We had so many people coming over and asking questions, and it was like a range of, questions and topics and, do you have this, do you have that? And so I was pleasantly surprised and happy that, that was the outcome of the day. So we're going to try and set a table for the block party, which I believe I sent to all of you. And so, again, our hope is just to keep going out and getting in front of people. And so that's why we'll have town halls, and we'll set up more than one of them, in terms of, and so we're just going to organically sort of go through our year, and we're giving ourselves a year to kind of develop some sort of form and function to this, because, our hope and our idea is to have this go to a Scarsdale or an Irvington where, when they heard about this from Michael Orr, they were already very interested about how we were going to go about it and our success. And so we're piloting here for selfish reasons because, this is Pleasantville. I live here, and you all know I'm invested in our village. And so, and look at this team. How can it go wrong?
I'm
Yeah.
often,
There are a couple of courses as well. I took one that are offered through the Department of Emergency Services and New York State for firefighters and EMS on responding to calls for neurodivergent community. I've taken some of them. It would be nice, and I'm in communication with the Commissioner of Department of Emergency Services to see if that could be integrated to some of the training that goes on for EMS and firefighters. They do touch upon it with EMS, but for firefighters, it could be integrated in Firefighter 1 or as a separate course, because we still need a continuing ed training as we go along. So they did have an option. I actually took the course in this past 6 months. I thought it was very well done. It was actually sponsored by New York State. And Lucy Labriola Cuff, who is in charge of the training for New York State now, who used to be with Westchester County, has been very good as far as communicating. All of us get emails that are sent to each fire department, and then the chiefs will disseminate them so that we can sign up for different classes on the online portal. So that's another thing that we can do to make sure that there is that other educational piece there.
Right, well, one of the things this really has to be is a super liaison sort of function. And part of that is going to be going to the different stakeholder groups and listen, see what they know, see what they don't know, see what they'd like to know, what they would like to see set up to help them be able to find the resources they need to do their jobs properly. And that's going to take a fair amount
for sure.
of work, but that's the kind of work that automatically, even, aside from the structures, if people just start meeting each other around the table and associate one person or one group with something, you often end up with tangible benefits right away, even before you get to your outlines.
I've often thought for many, many years, but in a lot of respects, I think it got magnified in the pandemic, that, there was sort of a generations past idea of everybody's mentally healthy, but Mr. Smith next door is mentally ill. Like there's some sort of a dividing line between healthy people, which is what most people are, and mentally ill people, which is what a few people are. And when,
But then
in
we
fact,
have the internet.
right, every single household, every single person has struggles. And the person who is struggling and arrives at crisis might not have arrived at that crisis if it could have been ratified
Interventions.
earlier in the game. And painfully, I've often thought we have the wrong town name. Because people have the idea that here we live in this Norman Rockwellville community called Pleasantville, and every, elected Garrison Keillor used to say that men are strong, the women are beautiful, and the children are all above average. And yet, so it's an isolating experience to struggle, even in exactly the kind of ways we all struggle at moments, because it feels like nobody else is doing it. Of course, everyone is doing it. So that's a piece of this that
Absolutely. A friend of mine who is a teacher in Ardsley, they have a new assistant superintendent, and they just did a health and wellness session for the teachers. And she said they're frequently doing these kinds of things focused on students, but this one was focused on teachers. And she said it was really refreshing and actually really helpful. And they gave them, I think it was 1 or 2 days, but they really gave them a number of tools that they can use. And I think there's going to be follow through with this too. But it came to mind as, as Peter was saying, like it affects everyone. And you need like the whole system, right? So speaks to the EMS and the firefighters, if they're coming to help people who are struggling in various ways, we can't overlook their needs as well. Yeah.
Well, I think, certainly post-COVID, the understanding of what isolation does and what fear does, and seeing so much manifested in so many ways has really, I think, caused everyone to pause and take a look not only at themselves, but those around them, and gave us an excuse to continue to try to destigmatize mental health issues, because that's what we have to do. We have to, just like everyone understands, this happens to, anyone. Could be everyone at some point of their lives. So how do we just make sure that we, as a compassionate community, are addressing them, especially with young people? I mean, part of why, and we've done a lot with Michael Ort as well, and the Harris Project, we've been able to put a lot of resources there, and it's good because it's telling young people that even you have this anxiety, you're not alone. Other people feel like this, and there are other things to do besides, going, to drugs or alcohol. And I don't think we've done enough, frankly, of telling people that you're okay if you're feeling these ways. And
you might not be okay if you're not feeling.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, no one would believe that I wouldn't even, I couldn't even really speak in front of a number of people for years.
Really,
Yeah.
you've overcome that.
Yes. Exactly. And, I was painfully shy and really scared. No, it's true.
Yeah.
And I do tell people, how you are today doesn't mean you're going to be this way 10 years or 20 years or whatever. But, so I think finally, we have come to a point where we know that if we're not investing in the whole person, including their mental health, we won't have the kind of healthy society that we want. And even for me as a leader, we have Calm apps. I mean, all of my staff, they get it for free. It's part of their benefits, or at least, and we also have, access to therapists or whatever, confidential things, but also, we try and give people tools so that you can, just for yourself, take those moments. And so
Well, and further to what David said about the community having an increased population of neurodivergent kids and now young adults, no doubt adults as well, was an epic moment in this room when John Nona was mayor, when there was a controversy about a group home. And in the course of that controversy with neighbors concerned about it, somebody got up and reported that they have a sibling who would be a likely candidate to live in this home, and kind of broke the wall there a little bit because it was, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. And then a few other people
Yeah.
made similar kinds of comments, and you realize that these life challenges are knit all through the fabric of the community, and it's just there's, more so in the past, I hope, than the present, this sense that you didn't say anything about it. And I'm always struck and so encouraged when I find myself in the high school where kids are very engaged with kids who are mainstreamed out of special needs programs, and they kind of look after them. A bunch of kids end up in the high school play, and the rest of the cast is helping make sure that they have a good experience. And I went to a 2,400 kid regional high school in New Jersey. There was none of that. So it does seem as though social progress inches its way forward. So
Yeah.
And I'll say Leslie, Westchester is extremely, really blessed because of the number of organizations that, we have to support, just almost anything and everything. Very generous community, so that the task force, they're not gonna have to figure out who does this, who does that on their own, things like Nonprofit Westchester or whatever, where there is kind of a centralized, group, access to who's doing what. And, really kind of knitting together all of the various services. We're very, very fortunate to have as many as we do.
and obviously, we're all engaged in our communities, and you obviously have state responsibilities elsewhere in the state. These services are very hard to find. You end up in conversations at NICOM, whatever. You must have these with your colleagues. You realize the world has a long way to go, but what you guys are doing here, if it in the end becomes a model that other communities pick up on, that's the whole idea, right? Everybody's standing on everybody's shoulders.
That's great. Well, let us know what we can do to support this effort.
When might you try to do these sort of town hall gatherings?
Well, I'm waiting for everyone to get back into their school schedule and reaching out to SEPTA. That's my first, and scheduling them one in the fall and one in the spring. And at some point, I'm going to help our assembly member schedule something in the senior center in the fall. So now after meeting you, we'll start scheduling, different areas that we're all responsible for. But years ago, our county legislator and Michael Ord and someone else, we had a town hall at ArcSages, and I know someone who's kind of very well known in sort of setting up trusts for sort of like the neurodivergent community, and so I invited SEPTA and families to, or anyone who was interested, to show up. And what we discovered alarmingly at that meeting was no one had a trust set up for their kids. And so that was such a, this is what we're hoping, that we have this sort of like discovery of like, oh no, you have to have that. And, even if you don't use this expert that I've just, invited here, please go to someone and set up a trust, because you want to make sure your child is taken care of, because it's not a good thing if you don't have anything set up.
Well, and then the overlay to that, folks who don't have the assets to create a trust. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're obviously seeing quite a bit of concern at the moment among parents of whose offspring are now many times in their twenties into their young thirties and are going to be needing support through their lives. And the question is who and how after the point at which the parents are no longer here. So,
Right, and if you're not telling anyone that, then what's going to happen?
right.
And so that was very alarming, but at the same time, you know, I know a lot of them that didn't set anything up. I recommended local attorneys who do that sort of thing, and so I'm hoping that it's all done at this point, but that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
So we'll see what this discovery process brings us, and because, half of it is listening, so.
Well, something that you said put set a light bulb off in my head is when we do these things, for example, when you're talking about making sure that parents understand the need to set up a trust, what they need in the trust and how to go about it, is you do it and let's assume everyone in the community has done it, but you're not finished. It's like cutting
Yes.
your grass. You have to keep doing it on a regular basis because you have new people cycling in all the time who need the same information. And sometimes when there are problems or issues identified, we forget that the only way to solve them is regular maintenance. And that's something that we probably need to talk about, as well as how to perpetuate the systems by which people can get all the information they need to succeed.
And I think Alyssa posted our emails, our committee list with emails.
Again, she was waiting on the full list of membership, the committee members. list.
Okay, all right.
Home address
So that's-
after hours cell phone.
So that's like another way for anyone to email or.
Social
access
security
us.
number.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was available.
Yeah, that's up.
They already had that. They just.
I get a letter every week saying that my social security.
I know, it's
number shall not come
annoying,
with
from places that you didn't know had them, right?
Exactly.
Oh, it's been breached, and you're like, why even?
I think everyone in my family got a letter from Ticketmaster last week.
Oh, yeah.
There had been a big data breach or something. What did Ticketmaster know about it? I don't know. So,
I'm not sure why Ticketmaster would need your social.
I'm sure they didn't have it, but,
Yeah.
well, I'm not sure of anything. Right? They may have already.
They'll probably track your movement in real time.
Well, like cell phone companies, well, they still do it, but I recall being annoyed. This was 20 years ago. You get a cell phone account, yet you had to give them your social security number, which was, I suppose, part of the credit check or something. I don't know. But somewhere AT&T Wireless still has it.
So does a whole bunch of other people now, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thank
All right,
you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Great.
you.
And thank you. We have quite a trio of elected officials here, so very
Well,
much
I'm-
appreciate it.
I just came to be supportive. Haven't been pressed into service into the
Yeah.
committee, so.
We
don't-
will.
Oh,
No,
come
that's
budget
fine. No, it's fine.
Come budget time.
Yes, well,
Sorry about
that's
the
sort of what I
paparazzi,
do.
trouble getting in here. so
Yeah.
we do what we can.
I haven't sent in the full list yet.
No, that's okay. No. We know,
I think.
we can support in myriad ways.
I think she has enough to do. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, now back to much more mundane matters, NYSERDA grant funding.
Yes, so we've qualified through our various efforts, thanks to the Climate Smart Committee. We've qualified for $100,000 in NYSERDA funding for green energy tech programs. Now, NYSERDA has had a lot of money that refreshed every year through the budget process. But this year, that refreshment didn't happen. So they're drawing down on the current pot of money. So there is a bit of a rush to submit for projects.
Right.
To draw on our $100,000. So it's first come, first served. And so we kind of want to get our list of projects in order. Now, you can submit for items that you've already purchased or initiatives that are underway. So, for instance, we're thinking about submitting for the 2 EV these vehicles, but we've already in the process of acquiring them, and that's ineligible. So, wanted to propose a couple other items. And Nicole, feel free if you have any input here, but during the budget process, the Parks Department wanted to purchase another.
F-150, right? Lightning.
Well, we already did that. They wanted
You
to
got one,
purchase.
right?
Yes, yep, they wanted to purchase another all-electric lawnmower.
They love the thing.
Yeah, they love the thing. That's about $25,000. We
awesome.
knew that we would be potentially get some grant money through NYSERDA, so we took it out of the budget this year in hopes that we could secure funding through this process. So if you are all on board with that, we'll submit for that, certainly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Where did he use it?
everywhere, Parkway, Soldiers and Sailors.
It's much better, easier for the operator too, because it's not so loud.
Yes, yeah, they really love it, and they love the F-150 too.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
so they actually, we're getting a charger installed down, another charger installed at DPW, because now with all of these, EV, items we have, we need more ports down there, so.
Right.
That potentially could be something we look at as well, increasing our footprint of charging stations down at DPW. We're also looking at, through the energy audit of this building, obviously we'll likely come up with some capital items that we need to undertake right off the bat. I don't need to do a study to tell you that all the windows on the 3rd floor need to be replaced. The cold air leaks in during the winter at a rapid pace. Some of them, we have trouble shutting. So we would like to come up with a budget there and submit for energy efficient items in Village Hall.
What about putting like a solar roof on the pool house?
That probably will take some engineering for us to do.
That doesn't, I can tell you about solar
Oh.
panels, but the projects like that don't require an investment from us. The biggest space that would be well suited to that is the roof at the middle school. And I can tell you more about that.
Are they looking at that?
Well, so I reached out, so there is a company that will basically build the whole project for them. And then they would essentially, they would gain the electricity, but then in return, they would pay the school district a certain amount of money per year. So it would be like a,
Yes, the
So-
people do in their homes.
Yeah.
it would win-win. And there are a couple of different methods you can go by. Sustainable Westchester also has a similar project that they can do. So I reached out to a couple of members of the school board and presented it to them and offered to serve as a liaison, and it hasn't gone further than that. But the 2 spaces, so this guy did an analysis of the village, and the 2 spaces that would lend themselves well to solar panels are the middle school and the Bank of New York building, but that of course is likely to disappear, so that doesn't seem like a good space. Eric,
Yeah.
I want to hear the rest of what you have to say,
Yeah.
but what about the energy audit itself?
So we've executed the contract with them. We're gonna have
Okay.
some kickoff meetings coming up.
But in terms of paying for it,
For paying for it, it's not eligible.
it's not eligible.
But the
Okay.
items that come out of it, the recommended
eligible.
items are.
Okay,
So that way, we'd like to kind of put and submit on a blueprint, some of the items we know will result from the energy audit,
So how much
yeah, that
money
makes
is
a
on
lot of
your
sense.
list right now?
So between the mower and the various Village Hall capital upgrades, we'll probably end up getting close to $100,000.
Okay, so you're okay for.
In the windows all the way around the 3rd floor would be a lot.
A lot.
What about carving off a little bit of money for the rebate program, because that's been so popular?
Yeah,
Would that be difficult to do?
if
or-
that's something we want to continue with, we can certainly
I
look
just, I
into
keep
it.
getting emails.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't cost a lot either, I think if we were to carve off even just 5,000 would be good, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
For that, I think that would be really nice.
I bet a lot of the people who did mowers are now ready to do snow blowers.
Yeah.
I got So great.
Yeah, nice.
Snowblower, yeah.
Electric snowblower?
Yeah,
And what, an ego or?
ego, yeah, cause then I got a leaf blower, you use the same batteries.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, I got an Eagle mower some years back and it is hands down the best lawnmower I've ever had.
That's cool.
It's been great. And it starts every spring without any to do, unlike my gas mowers, which there was always something.
But I think your suggestions are great. I think the all electric lawnmower, I would like to run it by I mean, just at least to let them know,
Yeah.
run it by the, Climate Smart Committee. Because they've all been very involved in
Sure,
getting us to this
absolutely,
number.
and yeah.
And, but to me, I always like the best bang for the buck ones, the ones that don't require tons of hours of volunteer work, that that have real impact on emissions. So, yeah, I think those are good suggestions.
Okay, perfect. And I mean, we know, for instance, the compressor serving this floor, is an old unit with an air handler in the attic. That is beyond its useful life. It's been on our capital program for replacement, but likely we could get an energy or a more energy efficient one that would qualify as well.
Okay.
So
Do we know when the energy audit is likely to take place?
I would say starting in the fall.
Okay,
Yeah, that hung ceiling in the third floor below the attic is
And we're
no
looking,
insulation at all.
no installation at all. We're looking to engage an engineer to kind of look at whether we want to move that air handler, maybe create some sort of closet out here in the lobby if we have enough room, instead of trying to keep it up in the attic, because that causes its own issues. So a lot to unpack, but in terms of this grant program, we're confident that some of those items would definitely qualify, and the sooner we can get our application in, the better chance we have to
Yeah.
secure those funds.
so I know that it wasn't quite certain how they were gonna allocate all that funding, so they haven't, the clean energy program, they didn't put any money into
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
That's so stupid.
The state didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was somebody from NYSERDA at NICOM, somebody fairly, that I kind of lobbied for this issue, not that it was all in her
Yeah.
hands, but it's such a well-designed program, that I don't understand why they wouldn't fund it, but anyway,
We've definitely been pretty effective. with that
Yeah.
Program, thanks to your committee, so. Okay, we've got our marching orders on that.
All right, then draft child abuse policy. I haven't had a chance to look at it in the attachment.
Who's the superintendent in that policy?
That's Mike Newman.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I was wondering that too.
I suggested that we included a piece that Eric found in the state verbiage about who qualifies as a mandated reporter.
And basically, after school program workers would qualify, so anyone who's employed part-time or full-time in support of Panther Club, summer camp employees. So basically, our after-school program teachers, so basically anybody that's working with kids would qualify. We're gonna talk to our attorney to see if this is a policy we should have every village employee sign, or just those that are interfacing with kids. But you know, those are kind of the more granular details we'll work out, but
So I thought, in the category of a bureaucratic form that has to have the legalese, I thought it was pretty well done.
and you know, obviously, the Parks and Rec Department has done a great job running Panther Club, and they have their own internal protocols, but we wanted to get this in writing and very clearly defined as we move the program forward. So.
Absolutely.
Okay. Great.
Columbia's
Yes.
Cancer Center Velocity Ride, same as last year.
Same as last year. They don't need to close roads, but it is a number of cyclists that come through on essentially two different routes. About mid-morning to mid-afternoon, takes about an hour, maybe 2 hours. It's a little bit of an inconvenience, but they did a good job last year, so in terms of PD having concerns, they don't. The one detail that we still need to work out is they did a brake stop at the pool. But that pool may be offline because of the reconstruction project. So we let them know, listen, that's gonna be offline. You're gonna have to find somewhere else in the area. So, more to come there,
I mean,
but
they could use the pump house parking lot. That's a little rugged in there.
yeah, they brought that up and, I don't know. if
Paving
that's-
is a bit rugged.
And it's, you know, the pool house parking lot was great, right? Cause you just, you cycle in one end and cycle out the other, do a quick break, but, you know, they've,
Well, when will we know when the contractor is gonna start mobilizing there?
soon.
So,
Yes.
and hopefully,
Construction meeting.
very hopefully, it's not available for,
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
for
exactly.
this purpose. All right.
Right. Okay, JCAP grant, that's a annual grant program that we get through our justice court.
Staff has been the Energizer Bunny every year.
Yep, and actually pretty interesting. She listed in her backup all the projects that she's secured great JCAP money for, and it's a very impressive list. But we are looking at replacing these fine chairs that have had a nice run here for the village.
So we need to wait another 20 years to do those to get them in the condition these chairs were in. before we replace them.
Yeah, well, right, these had a long road too.
What are you channeling Steve Lord?
Yeah, exactly. So really, we can talk about, there's two examples of chairs in the back meeting room you can all take a look at. The mayor and I looked at them.
We have an
before.
opinion, but we will not share it until you have voted.
Yeah. The big takeaway is, the village will have to cover about 30% of the expense, and it's gonna be around $10,000. So if the board is okay with expending $3,000 on new chairs, that will hopefully last us another 30 years. We can cut Stephanie loose on that.
Cool.
What's gonna happen to these
I was
chairs?
gonna say, we've got to find someone who would want them because they're in not terrible. condition.
Yeah. I mean, you know, maybe we'll see if rec needs them for anything. But,
Are they all still together?
well,
They can be unbolted there.
yeah, these can be unbolted, and the new ones will have a bolting component. That's something our insurance company highly recommends for court and boardrooms.
I was gonna say, so then
I got the chair.
I mean, there's that, and then there's also the other problem that we used to have is people would take them. Not necessarily to steal them, but to use them elsewhere,
Oh, man.
Yeah,
possibly to steal them, but
yeah,
some people just.
very good. All right, and then if we have a couple more minutes, just one item that's not on the agenda, we have two meetings coming up, one on Columbus Day, one on Veterans Day. Okay, obviously, we're probably not gonna hold our meetings on federal holidays, so I identified 10/16, which is the week of Columbus Day, so Columbus Day is on October 14th.
Okay.
So,
I can't do, I'm in Virginia on 16,
okay,
but if you have a quorum, go
Yep.
for it. Friday I could do that week.
Fridays are never good.
yeah.
Friday night meeting?
Yeah, that is.
No, Friday, well,
Okay, so we're looking at October,
16.
October 16th
It's Wednesday.
of that week.
I could do that.
Yeah, I could do it.
I can do it.
So we'll do that, and then Veterans Day, 11/11 would be a meeting day. We have that Thursday night, so the 14th of it.
Okay.
So the 14th is a Wamoa dinner.
Thursdays are tough for me. Wednesdays are more doable.
All right,
What was the trouble with Wednesday that week? Is there,
Uh,
to planning commission?
planning, yeah, I mean, we could do it that Tuesday or Wednesday at the senior center if it's more convenient.
Yeah,
We just have to.
senior
re-
center. Probably could get over there once a year anyway, right?
Okay.
Tuesday would be better for me if that's possible than Wednesday.
I could do that.
Yeah, either day is okay for me.
Okay,
Wednesday,
so,
Tuesday or Wednesday are better for me, for sure.
all right, so you wanna do a Tuesday then? So that would.
Tuesday, the 12th.
Right, and then, we do have a meeting, a regular meeting, the week of Christmas would fall that Monday, the 23rd. If you all don't see a problem with that, we typically would do a special bill pass meeting that week, but if you want to hold regular work session board meeting or?
I'm okay with that.
I'm going away the next day, so it depends on how late it is. I mean, if it's just a bill pass meeting.
The 23rd or the
23rd.
Yeah,
It's
that's
fine.
okay.
I mean, it's not likely to be a heavy meeting in anything.
That should be okay. All right.
So we'll leave it on its regular day.
Yes.
So-
Okay, very helpful.
All right, so you have 2 minutes. You could go look at the chairs.
Okay.
I want to
Deciding right now.
I want to tell you guys,
Two
my
different
daughter
chairs.
went to the PCTV camp today.
Yes,
Oh,
And
yeah?
she enjoyed it, so.
good.
And it ran, so those are all good things.
No, yeah, definitely want to talk about that.
Yes, I have some on that as well.
Yeah.
All right, good evening all. We've just finished our work session and some idle chit chat about a grant that will pay for new chairs here at Village Hall. And we are now to begin our regular meeting. Today is Monday, August 26th. And as is always the case, you can attend here at 80 Wheeler Avenue. You can also pick up a Zoom link at pleasantville-ny.gov. And within a relatively short period of time, the Zoom video of this meeting, as well as videos of prior meetings, can be accessed on demand at pctv76.org. Our next regular meeting is on Monday, September 9. School and regular fall life will have begun again. So I've got a few announcements to make, and perhaps others do too. First is, as I think most people who pay attention to our board meetings are aware, we voted last week to go ahead with the pool project. And as if the pool had hurt us, shortly thereafter, we had to close the regular use of the deep end because the coping stones along the edges of the pool were coming loose and were dangerous. Part of the resolution of that would have involved draining part of the pool and undertaking a several-day repair, which seemed like it was a regrettable development to close the pool for a few days and be throwing good money after this. So we anticipate a kickoff meeting with the pool contractor coming up soon, Eric.
Yep.
And the staging process will begin, and the goal, although not the certainty, is that they begin this fall and finish in time to open the pool at Memorial Day of next year. So exciting times, an expensive project, but one which I think we've done the right thing. Just wanted to remind folks that we have a seasonal ban on gas-powered leaf blowers that runs from May 15 to September 30. We certainly have seen a lot of compliance, but we also have seen some non-compliance. And I just encourage everybody, especially people who have a lawn service, to make certain that their lawn service is following that guideline. Also wanted to comment, as I did the last time, we had a meeting with a bunch of people from the State Department of Transportation, including Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart-Cousins, who is our senator in this district, as well as Assemblyperson Mary Jane Shimsky, and several people from Department of Transportation Region 8 to talk about the Grant Street intersection. Since that time, we, I think, have made some progress that suggests that getting a red light camera at that traffic light, while not certain, is inching in a good direction. It will require some state legislation, which I think Senator Stewart-Cousins is going to undertake when the legislative session starts in January. There's been positive feedback from the county about their willingness to include that intersection in their pilot program for 50 cameras. All accurate, Eric?
That is all accurate.
Anything to add to that?
Nope, the budget session, which can include the proposed legislation, will kick off in January, and our state legislators have said that they intend to introduce this right away.
Great, good work, guys.
Yeah, so amid that, there continues to be commentary, and we've received commentary pro and con about the notion of closing that intersection, the Grant Street crossing at the Sawmill. It is a fraught discussion with many people feeling very strongly on both sides. my overlay to that is that there are a lot of consequences associated with closing it. It's not just a matter of closing it and imagining that traffic and circulation patterns for pedestrians will remain similar. You got a whole lot of people who are getting on the Sawmill at Grant Street. It remains unclear if it were to be considered to be closed, whether a northbound entrance is still viable if there weren't a traffic light there. So depending on the resolution of that, there are a whole series of issues about where those cars will go, and recognize that the ingress and egress from the Sawmill at the other nearby locations are also less than ideal traffic configurations. So there are a whole lot of issues here.
Can I ask a question? In the Examiner article, it mentioned cutting back foliage and maybe improving the signage. I know I've, paid attention to that intersection driving through it in the past few weeks. And I noticed that particularly at night when you're driving south is when somebody who's not already familiar with that intersection might have issues. So I was just wondering about what proposals came up and whether that's in
Well,
process.
first off, DOT folks said that they had sent people out and cut back a lot of underbrush recently, and hopefully that's already been done. They upgraded a couple of fixed signs, but they also made the commitment that they would replace the signs that are currently just a constant flashing yellow to suggest that there's an intersection coming, to replace them with lights that are synchronized with the red light, so that there will be a warning light when there actually is a red light. So that light, instead of this kind of being the wallpaper of life, would become an accurate warning that there's a red light approaching. Obviously, even in the best of circumstances, that is never going to be a great intersection. It's a difficult condition, to say the least. Obviously, not everybody pays attention, including this spate of tractor trailers on the Sawmill who turned their trailer into an accordion crashing into the bridge.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
It's happened several times in recent weeks. The last one was actually like an 18-wheeler. Completely destroyed the truck. So, painfully, there are a certain number of drivers who are simply not paying attention, right?
Yeah.
There's no way completely to mitigate that. But I do think, and I've had a conversation with a number of folks who say, look, I treat that intersection as a red alert location. I use it, I want to be able to cross there, but I take personal responsibility to say, I'm not going to cross until I'm sure that the other cars have stopped and that it's safe for me to proceed. That is sometimes easier said than done, but I have myself many times seen, folks walking across talking on cell phones, whatever, pushing a stroller, talking on a cell phone.
Yeah.
You're crossing a 4-lane highway. You need to have your wits about you. When Yami's back, she was gonna help push forward a project to come up with a little safety video. DOT had sent us one that Vassar College students had done about a hot pedestrian dangerous hotspot at the Vassar campus crossing Raymond Avenue. And it was really, both amusingly done, but the kind of thing that says, okay, you know what, I'm guilty of that too. I should do better. Yeah.
Is it just meant for pedestrians in general or at that?
It was specific to that intersection. It was about college students. But the
No, but I
idea,
mean, what Amy's thinking of.
what she was thinking of was trying to get PCTV involved. Perhaps the school district can come up with something that would be a short, minute long, perhaps a little bit amusing, serious message
Yeah.
that could be pushed out through the schools, but adults need it too. So, so I can say, and perhaps you are all in the same circumstance. I've had people come to me and say, it should have been closed 50 years ago, close it. And I've had people come and say to me, it's been this way for all these many years. I'm careful there. It is very important to me and would be very harmful to my side of town, whichever side you're on, if I couldn't make that crossing, and it would divide the community in a way that I don't wish to see. So strong feelings on all sides, but it isn't just a matter of closing it and everything would be fine. If we closed it, we'd have a whole series of other problems to consider. All right. The recap of dates on your calendar, the block party, Paul, 9/21.
Up 9/21, we are still accepting anyone who wants to be a sponsor. We're registering for anyone else to be a sponsor. The last day to be a sponsor is this Friday. Then we're gonna get everything printed out, banners, things like that. So if anyone's interested. And sign-ups for vendors is the final date for that is Friday, September 6th. So if anyone's interested, let us know. We are, for anyone that's a business or an organization that is not a part of the chamber, if you join the chamber, then there's no fee to be a participant at the block party. So, and it gives you the 1 year membership. So anyone that's interested, please communicate with the Chamber of Commerce. On our website, we have all the information. And we're still, the villages already had their first meeting with all the heads of different departments about running the event. The only difference that we're looking at from last year to this year is that we're going to keep the event running at the same time, both on Washington Avenue and on Wheeler, so that it's all uniformly from 1 to 6 p.m. So other than that, everything else is generally the same. There might just be a different layout or where some of the vendors have been in the past for better positioning of where we want them.
All right, thank you, sir. And then going in chronological order, Sunday, October 27 in the afternoon is the annual Ragamuffin Parade. We switched last year to a Sunday instead of a Saturday, just fewer conflicts with traffic and activity at Memorial Plaza. So that is Sunday, October 27 for the Ragamuffin Parade. And then our annual lighting ceremony ushering in the holiday season, Saturday, December 7th. Switched again this year, conversation with the Chamber of Commerce to Saturday instead of a weekday.
Correct. We wanted to try out this and that we moved the event 1 hour back because we realized that having an event on mid-weekday with school going on and kids going to bed a little earlier was a bit tough for parents. So we moved it to a Saturday and we moved it to 6 o'clock is when the event would actually start. So at the same time, we're utilizing this event as kickoff to doing a shop local event that we're looking to have different members of the business community do some kind of specials and sales or restaurants and also maybe specials after the event so that people can stay out and be a nice kickoff to the holiday season.
Thank you for that. And then in the category of downtown developments, as folks are able to see, the pharmacy going in at on Washington Avenue is under construction. And the former fish market is turning into a largely takeout food place called Lulu's, operated by Village Social Restaurant Group, same folks that operate Pub Street and Fat Root. So we're going to be having some more ribbon cuttings coming up soon. So good things going on. Eric, you want to give the brief summary of Manville Road and
Sure.
retaining walls and gray hair?
Yep, right now they are pouring the wall around the signal. They're pouring it in 3 separate units. So the 2 side units we're hoping will be poured this week or next week. The footings were poured last week. You need to give it 4 days to cure. The wall sections, once poured, need about 4 to 7 days, depending on how fast it cures. And then from there, they can work on the curb, do the flat work, it's called backfill, and do the curb and sidewalk work. So that wall needs to be built first, and so we're trying to coordinate all of that, but we'll have a crew back on site tomorrow, prepping the wall.
Great, good. Any other announcements? On any subject in the dog days of August? All right. To the resolutions number 2, let me share my screen and we'll go to 292, Paul.
Result, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the creation of a capital account for the Clark Street and Soldiers and Sailors Park Drainage Improvement Project. The total amount of $700,000 with $200,000 to adopted fiscal year 2025 budget and the appropriation of $500,000 from the general fund balance.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. I should have, Eric, given you a chance to quickly describe what's going on there.
Sure, so we're replacing aged and broken stormwater drainage infrastructure that runs under Clark Street and into Soldiers and Sailors. park. It is responsible for the consistent flooding that we get at Soldiers and Sailors. So we are gonna be undertaking this project. $200,000 of the project was budgeted in our general fund budget. And then we're looking to allocate an additional $500,000 from our fund balance to pay for it in cash.
All right. Nicole, 293.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the closing of the capital account Nanahagan Playground and the transfer of $91,667 to Parkland Deposit Special Purpose Accounts.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this is surplus from what we envisioned that playground might.
Yep, so if you recall, we originally had transferred the full cost of the project, which I believe ended up being about just under $160,000 from our Parklands Trust Fund, which is the pot of money we get from developers when they build in the village. Former Assembly Member Avenatti procured grant funding for our 3 playground upgrades. So that equals $91,667 per playground. So we got the funding, backed that out and returned it to the Parkland Trust account.
Great.
So we'll do the same when we take on the next project and close out the rest of our
Great.
upgrades.
How much is in that account?
I want to say it's about $400,000.
Yeah, I think I asked that just last week in response to a question. It's about 400.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 294, David.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for fiscal year ending 2024 as listed below. $25,375 from state disaster assistance revenue to pool storm repairs fiscal year ending 2024. $1,000 from state disaster assistance to Nanahagan Brook Wall retention rebuild. $152,250 from FEMA emergency disaster mitigation to pool storm repairs. And $6,000 from FEMA emergency disaster mitigation to the Nanahagan Brook Wall retention rebuild. The total is $184,625.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this is good news. Reimbursing us for quite a bit of expense. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved.
And
Thank you.
that's specifically helping fund the pool liner that we had to put on
Oh,
after.
that's
great.
good. We were hoping for that.
Right.
Yeah, so that event was considered natural disaster by FEMA and eligible for.
Fantastic.
All right, back to you, Paul, 295.
Result, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract of payment of claims dated August 26, 2024 for the fiscal year of 2025. The check numbers 11197 through 1112094. General fund, $349,566.46. Special purpose, $12,264.04. Water fund, $50,419.36. Capital fund, $1,838.21. Refuse fund, $16,652.45 for a total of $430,740.52.
Is there a second?
Second.
As is always the case, you can click into the payment of claims and see the line items. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 296.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting dated August 12th, 2024.
Sorry.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 297, David.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the pay rate increase for Diana Halloran, Panther Club Recreation Assistant from $28 to $29.
Is there a second?
Second.
First of a series of Panther Club resolutions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 298. Paul.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby accepts a pay rate increase for JD Mejia, Panther Club Recreation Assistant from $25 to $25.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Nicole, 299.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the new hire Raymond Pestoldi, Panther Club Recreation Assistant, job class code 0269 and an hourly pay rate of $22 effective August 26th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. David, 300.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorize new hire Olivia Resco, Panther Club Recreation Assistant, job class code 0269 upon completion of the job description by Westchester County Department of Human Resources will become recreation leader after school program at an hourly pay rate of $22 effective August 26, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 301.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorize the new hire of Carolyn Zilio, Panther Club Recreational Assistant Job Class Code 269 upon completion of the job description by Westchester County Department of Human Resources will become a recreational leader after school program at an hourly pay rate of $22 effective August 26, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion approved, 302. Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the new hire Sharon Jimenez, Panther Club Recreation Assistant, Job Class Code 0269 upon completion of the job description by Westchester County Department of Human Resources will become recreation leader after school program at an hourly pay rate of $22 effective August 26th, 2024. There are some grammatical issues with this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved, that's the end, as you no doubt have noticed. We're ramping up for the school year at Panther Club. And in the category of school year issues, 303.
Consider, result, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the appointment of Jeanette Andre as a school crossing guard, job code 0141, an hourly pay rate of $22 an hour effective September 3rd, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 304, Paul.
Whereas
Oh, it's appropriate.
there we go. Whereas the Pleasantville Chamber of Commerce of the Village of Pleasantville is scheduled to hold a community block party on September 21st, 2024, with a rain date of Saturday, September 28th, 2024, from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Washington Avenue and Wheeler Avenue. And whereas Washington Avenue from Edgewood Avenue to Manville Road, Wheeler Avenue from Manville Road to Bedford Road shall be closed from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And whereas the pending receipt of temporary beer, wine, and cider permit from New York State Liquor Authority, local vendors will sell alcohol, beer, wine, and cider during the event within a defined area of Wheeler Avenue. And now therefore be a result that the village board permits lifting of the village code 54-4, consumption in public spaces within the described area in the Wheeler Avenue for this date only, authorizes the village clerk to sign a New York State Liquor Authority's landlord consent form and issue an alcohol beverage permit. And be it further resolved, that the police chief is authorized to post no parking signs during the dates and the times noted in the support of the event, and it's authorized to tow cars in violation of the temporary restrictions.
Is there a second?
Second.
I just have one question. It would be the closing date, really, the closing time is from 11 to 7. Right? Because the event is from 1 to 6.
Yeah,
We need a 2-hour leeway before and an hour after.
yes.
So the first paragraph,
Paragraph should read 1 to 6, right?
it should, well, the event is from 1 to 6, the closing of the rows is from 11 to 7. Oh, yeah, so it should be 1 to 6.
In the first paragraph.
Yeah, first
The third
paragraph
line of
should
the
be 1
first
to
paragraph,
6.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
right?
Yep, that's the only change. So the first paragraph is 1 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Got that, Eric?
Yes.
The second one is good.
11 to 6?
The second is 11 to 7, an hour leeway on before and after.
No, but
2 hours.
2 hours
before, 1
before and 1 hour after.
But that's for the closing, that's not for the permit, right? Or do we?
Well, that's for the closing of the street. The street is closed 2 hours ahead for setup and
Or,
1 hour after for breakdown.
Correct.
right, okay, all right.
So it's just a change to the 9 p.m.
Yep.
to 7 p.m.
6 p.m. The first paragraph.
Yeah, 6 p.m. Sorry.
Yep,
Yes.
got it.
All right, that's
So with
okay
that-
with the mover and the seconder. All in favor as amended?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 305. Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign an agreement with Civic Plus for the purposes of a website upgrade in the amount of $16,847.
Is there a second?
Second.
So Eric, this is our current provider, but we're leaping 2 generations ahead in their system.
That is correct. Yep. It'll have a better user interface, more capacity to interact with residents. And we've gotten good feedback from some of the other communities that have gone through.
Right.
So this includes the design as well, or, yeah, okay.
I mean, it's a template we pick up, but, they're not inventing the site from scratch for us, but I've looked at a couple of them that they've done and they look pretty good.
Yeah.
Certainly a step well beyond where we are right now, so that's good. All in favor? Aye, motion approved, 306. David,
Whereas in support of the community block party being organized by the Pleasantville Chamber of Commerce since after September 21st, 2024, with the rain date of September 28th, 2024, certain no parking regulations on Edgewood Avenue will be required to enable fire department apparatus to respond to emergencies without the ability to utilize portions of Washington Avenue. Now therefore be resolved, Board of Trustees hereby authorizes temporary no parking regulations on September 21st, 2024, with a rain date of September 28th, 2024, from 12 to 6 p.m. on both sides of Edgewood Avenue, from Washington Avenue to Grove Street, and on the northern side of Edgewood Avenue from Grove Street to Manville Road. Be it further resolved, the police chief is authorized to post no parking signs for the dates and times noted in support of the event, and is authorized to tow cars in violation of the temporary restriction.
is there a second?
Second.
And we'll reach out to Grove and Edgewood folks in advance so they know about it.
That's right, and there's postings.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 307.
Result of the Board of Trustees hereby approves waiving the cabaret license for the purpose of the one-day event for the Pleasantville Chamber of Commerce Block Party on September 21st, 2024, with a rain date of September 28th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 308. Nicole,
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Donald Henkin, school crossing guard, job code 0141, effective May 4th, 2024.
is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John Hankin, long service in many capacities. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 309. David.
And this
Where
is
is-
one where you can say further stated in the record.
Okay, whereas further stated in the record. Whereas the series of tax certiorari proceedings titled Matter of Global Montello Group Corps versus Assessor of the Village of Pleasantville et al. With a legal filing that's in the record, are pending for the New York State Supreme Court, County of Westchester, and whereas these proceedings contest the real property tax assessments of two contiguous tax parcels identified as section 106.5 block 2 lot 43 and section 106.5 block 2 lot 44 on Village of Pleasantville 2020 through 2024 assessment rolls, and whereas proposed settlement has been reached, providing for the disposition of the claims asserted in this proceedings, and whereas the Village Board of Trustees has obtained the advice and assistance of his counsel, Keenan Bean PC, with respect to the proposed settlements and duly considered the same. And whereas pursuant to the settlement, the 2020 through 2024 assessments of lot 43 will be reduced, and the 2020 through 2024 assessments of lot 44 will be sustained. And whereas as a result, the Village of Pleasantville tax refund will be due in an amount equaling approximately $4,545.69 dollars. Now therefore be resolved, the Village Board of Trustees authorizes settlement of these proceedings to adjust the assessments of lots 43 and 44 as follows in the record below. Be further resolved, the village administrator and Keenan Bean PC as attorneys for the Village of Pleasantville are hereby authorized to take the steps necessary to effectuate these terms, including the execution and entry of the consent judgment.
Is there a second? Second. Is the result of an ongoing negotiation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 310. Paul.
Result that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the updated village master fee schedule.
Is there a second?
Second.
So that change reflected only one thing, right, Eric?
Yes, 70 memorial parking permit fee for residents.
Which is now $850.
800.
800. Everything else remains the same as last adopted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved.
I will note that there was a citizen who expressed the desire to have larger fees for developers accidentally or intentionally cutting down trees. But I would suggest that that person could come before us to speak about this at a later date.
Sure, we, as it turns out, are extremely limited in what kind of punitive fees we can have, and Jennifer, we actually, at one point, we're gonna have Jennifer talk to us, still are, it just hasn't worked out, so to be continued on that. All right, did we vote on that? All in favor? Aye, motion approved. All right, 311. Oh,
Me.
Nicole.
Resolve that on behalf. Repetition there, on behalf of Pleasantville Strong, the village administrator. To sign an agreement with Mobile Health Interventions LLC in the amount of $12,500 for the purposes of mobile messaging services for parents of elementary, middle, and high school students.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this is grant money that Pleasantville Strong manages and decides the use for. The village is the fiscal agent,
That is correct.
but we are simply acting on what their steering committee has proposed.
Do we know what it is?
You can read in the contract, it's a program that sends out messages that seek to support parents and kids in parenting issues, in mental health issues, in drug and alcohol awareness. So,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
motion approved. 312, David.
Result, the board of trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for fiscal year ending 2025 is listed below. $34,127 from Village Hall equipment to replace and repair Daikin air handlers, third floor Village Hall. $11,494 from police ammunition to for ammunition ordered fiscal year ending 2024 unexpended budget expense rollover. Total $45,621. Budget transfer from the water fund, $5,645 from contingency to water distribution outside services. $4,200 from contingency to water distribution outside services financial. $6,000 from water distribution equipment to water distribution supplies for a total of $15,845. Appropriate fund balance for the water fund, $8750 from water distribution outside service to ERP and vulnerability assessment compliance. This is a rollover of unexpended fiscal year ending 2024 budget expenses. $13,895 for water distribution outside services. This is engineering services for water tank inspection. Again, an unexpended rollover, and $13,640 for hydrants. For hydrants on order, again, this is unexpended budget expense rollover.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Okay, that's the last of our resolutions. Is there any comment of any sort from any member of the public? Either online or in person? There being none, any comments from any of us? New business? Amusing or robust?
Last meeting of the summer, right?
Yes, it is. All right, with that, is there a motion to go into executive session on matters of personnel and contractual matters?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you all. As reported, our next regular meeting is on Monday, September 9. Hope that the fall begins well for everybody in Pleasantville and for all the school kids. Thank you and good night.